friend was saying that now, sir, we are doing hard work from 6.2 to 5.8. We came around this. But I would still say, if you are going to pay the price, in today's market also, you are going to get 6 mm. So it is all, your commercial aspects. So it's not about 5.2 or 5.6. Yeah, of course, the production of common grade is increasing. That is a matter of concern. And the common grade rice, I don't think Africa accept much at a larger scale, I can say this. So even Binita madam is here, and we kept on talking to her since last 4 5 years. Madam, we have to work on this, on a pilot project. I saw one program in UP, I would like to say this, in Siddharth Nagar. There was a one tehsil, one product. So they used to sow this Kala Namak rice. The program was so good, entire area is having the same crop, entire area. And they are getting a value, I mean the 2 years before, 120 rupees a kg rice. And it is being exported, it is being domestically consumed at a same level, 100 to 120, it varies just, depend on the supply and demand. So such programs should be on a pilot project, ma'am, and it has to be monitored by all the, stakeholders. You know, of course, government is working on it. So only way to bring the value is to maintain the quality, nothing else. Your execution should be super, of course. Gulati ji has raised a very nice and valid point. There should be a, equal playing level. Some farmers are growing, good crop in remotest area. But because of logistic issue, he is unable to sell that product at a competitive. Maybe we have to make a brand, but it will take little bit time. Of course, we are working on it. Madam went to Japan for a special Japonica rice, and we identified also Joho and some other variety. So these things are already there, but we have to start, from here as well, that at least tehsil-wise, what I mentioned before, we have to maintain a paddy, common grade, and grade A should have a differential. My suggestion to the government, there is a only 200 rupees gap between common rice and long grain. It has to be more. Then the people will take more interest toward long grain, and that directly being consumed in Africa and other nations, it will bring value and it will boost our export, and I'm sure we will be able to achieve 25 million by doing this. This is what I can say this.
So Neeraj again re-emphasized the importance of quality consistency, and that's the only way out. We should definitely not compromise on quality. With that, I would like to go to Gagan one more time and ask a question which I think most of the people in the audience would like to understand, that today Indian millers, traders or exporters, they are at the mercy of the buyers on one side or at the mercy of Government of India or farmers on the other side. They have absolutely no control on the prices. So on one side, buyers are dictating depending upon what kind of destination prices or parities are there. On the other side, Government of India is deciding that what price our farmers or the producers, they should get for the produce. Right? So in between, comes a very little play for all these value chain players, whether it is miller, traders or exporter. So under these circumstances, how do you see the role of these stakeholders in the rice value chain?
See, as you rightly said, it's at the peril of two very distinct players. One is the government and the farmers, and the other side are the buyers. And in between, we are sandwiched as exporters, millers, and traders. Still, there is a play in it. As I mentioned during my last message, that it's us who has to maintain that quality, the value. As rightly said by you, you asked the question that 6.2 has become 5.8 and 5.7. We are destroying the value ourselves. We go and we open shops in importing countries, and we try to sell below the replacement price. There is no economic sense to it. Why would we do that? Why? Importing countries do need this rice for their staples, for their staple requirement. But over here, we try to take that value away. And in the bargain, the quality is compromised, the terms of contracts are compromised, the payment terms are compromised, and eventually, none of these participants make money. In fact, they lose money. And this money is their own hard-earned money and the funding and financing which has been given, provided by the banks. Each one of us are suffering in the bargain. What is the idea? We have reached the maximum volume, but we have lost the value. Hence, the only way forward, and which is sustainable, if we are looking at increasing the volume from 20 million, 22 million to 25 million, it can only be done when we are able to maintain the value at our end. Believe you me, buyers, they like Indian rice and they are ready to pay a price for it, but not at such ridiculous discounts. A classic example given by Anupam about Bangladesh tender, it was just not required or needed to do. But one after the other tender, third tender, fifth tender, seventh tender, and what did we get? None of the participants has made a single money on it, and we will lose our name because if some of us are unable to supply, India will get the bad name. Why? What was the need to do that? Because again, OMS's rates may be slashed and we may get the cargo at an X price 3 months down the line, hence let's go short. Okay, it can be done once. But if it is repeated, it's a crime which we are doing. It should be stopped. There is no other way. We can look at the government and ask for policy stability. What about us? Can we bring in the price stability in this entire bargain? It's a give and take from both sides. And that's how it is. The trade, if it has to survive, it would have to come out of this phase right now. Look at the dairy. Who dominates the dairy? New Zealand. They dominate because they are the largest volume and value provider to the world of dairy. Same is the case with any other, you look at Indonesia and Malaysia dominating the palm, and India falls in line, and that's how, market prices are discovered. Coming to rice, it is India, and that can drive the both volume and value and ensure that from farmer till trader and all the participants in between are able to extract some portion of the cake.
I think the moot point here is that the world likes Indian rice and the buyers are ready to pay the price for it. Right? So it's up to us that how we want to take this rice value chain and prices, volumes to our end consumer. Again, I'd like to move to Anupam, and I know after this session he's going to kill me because I'm going to ask all the controversial questions to Anupam today. And I love hearing his viewpoints on all those controversial questions. And I want all of you to also get benefited out of it. So Anupam, there is a big debate going on between food, feed and fuel. And people keep talking कि चावल जो है वो खाने में जाना चाहिए, कि फीड इंडस्ट्री को देना चाहिए, कि अभी फ्यूल में जो रिसेंट गवर्नमेंट ने इथेनॉल पॉलिसी रिसेंट तो नहीं है, नाउ इट्स मोर देन 6-7-8 years old पॉलिसी, तो चावल का जो कंजम्पशन है वो कहाँ पे रहना चाहिए, वो पॉलिसी कैसे डिसाइड होनी चाहिए, और उसका राइस इंडस्ट्री पे जो इम्पैक्ट आ रहा है शॉर्ट टर्म में, मीडियम टर्म पे, हाउ डू यू सी दैट एंड हाउ कैन दैट बी मोर स्ट्रीमलाइन टू बेनिफिट द राइस इंडस्ट्री?
Okay, so the last portion of my answer first, that the ethanol policy and the associated requirement of rice for ethanol is least of the problem of rice supply and demand balance sheet today for India. Least, because the quantum is very, very small, and as the government has already capped the blending at 20%, so right now the fight is between sugarcane, maize and rice, and rice is a very, very minion component in that big fight, because the bigger fight is between sugarcane and maize. Now coming to what Neeraj and Gagan has said about value. Now let's put it, let's draw the context about this concept of value. What is this value? Now, look at the India's production numbers as given out in various advanced estimate, and the large number, let's say 150 million ton. What is the consumption of Indian people? It's not, on a food basis, the consumption is not more than 93 million tons. If we add the non-food use between ethanol, starch, maybe some other utilizations which are non-food, you can take another 10 million, and then you can keep a small portion for the re-sowing. So even then, you are left with close to around nothing less than 40 million tons of rice, or 40 to 45 million tons of rice in the indica category. Now you put the total marketable surplus of the 5 other competing countries, Pakistan, Vietnam, Myanmar, Thailand, and maybe 1 or 2 more. And now Brazil is also an emerging power in the rice. So if you add the marketable surpluses of these 5-6 competing countries, it comes to around 31 million ton. So 40 million ton plus of India's marketable surplus and 31 million ton of marketable surplus from competing countries, 72 million tons of total marketable surplus of indica category as against the global demand of 33 million ton. So the rice has to trade at the marginal cost of production in the 6 competing producing nations of the world. That's the reality. And then people keep falling over each other that who can extract maximum value marginally higher than the marginal cost of production in any other producing country. So it's a fool's errand. I mean, it's basically race to the bottom. The only way India can detach itself from the race to the bottom is actually increase the value in the rice by putting some protein into it, by adding some minerals to it through better seed development, going back to the roots of varietals, giving better value to that to farmers, having sustained partnership programs with large farmer clusters. We keep talking about partnership with farmers. I don't know how many of the rice exporters have tried to partner with farmers for a particular rice variety. We always say that it should be done, but who will do it? State governments they have their own limitations of resources, and they will always promote the highest productivity rice because farmer needs to be paid. So highest productivity rice is IIRS 64. The moment we bring in varietals, the productivity drops, and it has to be compensated through higher nominal price to farmer, and it can only be realized in international market through a sustained program of partnership between the farmer, processor, exporter, branding, regulator, everybody put together. Then only the value can be fetched, because to compensate for lower productivity for a varietal as against an IIRS 64 can only come through higher prices. And India, there is not a large enough population which can actually support the lower productivity, high quality varietals by paying them a higher nominal price. So the whole issue about food, feed and fuel, I think it's not a very relevant debate in my opinion, because the share of rice in the ethanol share is very small, and so goes for feed. Even the feed also, the processed rice is of a very small contribution to the overall feed recipe. If we look at whether it is a bovine feed or we look at the goat sheep feed or fish feed, the rice is one of the smallest component in the feed recipes. So I think the food, feed and fuel debate is not eminently relevant for the rice sector of India.
You know, that's why I like Anupam, because मेरे जितने controversial questions होते हैं ना, उनको इतना आसानी से साइड में रख देते हैं, whether it is related to home business policy or it is related to food, feed and fuel. So he very said this topic is irrelevant, right? We should not spend our unnecessary energy on this topic. But I think that was on a lighter side. But very important points which Anupam touched upon is about the partnership with the farmers, doing some fortification, whether it is on mineral side or other value addition which we can do on rice, and then direct linkages with the markets. I think these are the key takeaways from this particular question from Anupam. Now moving on to again Neeraj. So we have talked a lot about on the supply side, India, government policy. Let's hear from him because they are one of the largest importers and traders in the market. So let's hear from them that how do they see the demand looks like in the next 1-2 quarters or in FY26, and basis that demand, how India should position himself to start capturing more market share, better value, and of course driving more volumes into those markets.
Thank you, Nitin. I think this is a very vital question in today's context, I can say this. we have to understand two concepts. One, pre-COVID, and second is post-COVID. So pre-COVID scenario was like that. Most of the Southeast Asian country were having a certain restriction. They were unable to move cargo. But post 2024, I can say, they started coming into the picture. Like last year, or maybe this year, Thailand is getting aggressive. They touched the lowest price of parboiled, as low as 340. You are aware about. Even white rice, they touched around 340, 335 level. Apart from this, Pakistan, then Myanmar, one of the, I can say the game changer in white rice, just 1 month before, in November, they were also trading at a lowest price, I can say this. They were even lower than us, $30, $40. So in my opinion, the coming phase, I think the India is always facing this kind of scenario, especially when the procurement is going across the country. November and December is a very crucial period for export. After this, January is slowly and gradually we are getting it back to the trade. Paddy flow, the normal trade will, come back to normal. But global demand is not going to change. We have to understand things. They are also sitting on a large stock. The movement is clear post-COVID, like the more restriction was till 2023. And then after, container started coming in, the movement has started from other Asian origin. So it's gonna be in a range bound and not that aggressive because Ramadan and other, festive has been over. So I don't see any aggressive demand coming into, but yes, India will continue to do this. Container volume is going, some break bulks are also going. Kandla has picked up in white rice. Kakinada is loading parboiled rice. Visakhapatnam is doing. So it's, I can say it's gonna be in the a very range bound, nothing aggressive, but of course, it will continue with the momentum. That's it. No aggressive trade I am expecting.
So Neeraj's view is that for the time being, the demand is going to be kind of a subdued for quarter 1. But I think beyond that, once Ramadan is over, the market will start picking up and there'll be more of a consistent demand, which will be keep seeing from the different markets. And India should position himself to start catering to those kind of requirements. And now to Gagan, my two specific questions to you. You have touched upon the value aspect of rice value chain, talked about India rice can be a brand. Anupam talked about rice fortification, right? So how can India start progressing on those lines? Because we have multiple varieties in India, and some of them are very niche varieties like Sona Masuri in south, or Govind Bhog in east, or Kala Namak in northern or central part of India. So, and there are n number of such varieties which has a very specific demand, not only into domestic market, but to the Indian diaspora who are there in the different parts of the world. So one, how can India start capturing onto that? Second, most of the markets where India is catering or exporting rice today, whether it is to Africa or to Asian markets, more or less those markets are saturated. And if in a long run India has to see India's exports to reach to 30 million metric ton, let's say by 2030, if that is the target, then what are those could be the markets where India can start looking that these are the untapped markets where India can start looking and exporting more of a rice into those markets?
So there are two questions. The first question is diversification of the varieties. See, over last 5 decades in India also, the consumption patterns have changed. This common paddy, which was driven in the 70s, 80s and 90s, was primarily meant for the BPL and just APL category consumers in India. India has moved on economically, and so that has also led to consumption changes. If you look at consumption now, the varieties what you are talking about, that is being consumed more in India. That is also being produced by farmers, but it is not supported by the governments, except one government now at the state level, which has started giving the bonuses to farmers for not producing the normal common variety paddy, but to go for these variants. Having said so, farmers, if they are given the bonuses for moving away from common paddy to different variant paddies, it does not help in getting India prices stabilized over there, but also opens up the market for internationally. So that's the first step which we can look at from now and next 5 years. While this is being done, the India rice brand has to be taken at a very strong footing so that the value is maintained and the buyers start respecting that variety and paying for it. That can be done. It should just not be volume all along. That's the first side of it. The second side of it is maybe the government and the industry put together can start diversifying and introducing India, as was done by PEDA in Japan now, start looking at markets in Southeast Asia. So West Africa is very well fed right now by all the origins, and it's reaching a choke point. India also should start diversifying into markets like Philippines, which is a big importer, close to 3.5 million tons, Indonesia, Japan. So the list of these importing countries is endless. We have not, looked at this side so far. If some kind of efforts are made at both government as well as industry levels, these gates can be opened. Yes, there are ways. Japonica is one which we are talking about, the Indian equivalent of it. If that happens, Philippines will open DT8. There are markets which would need to import on a consistent basis. Currently, India's focus is, I would say, West Africa and Middle East, where it is now reaching a supply glut. If we want to ramp it up from, say, 22 million to 30 million, we would have to open both these large importing markets, which are untapped by India, as well as the niche markets, what I spoke earlier. That's how it is. Thank you.
So Gagan said that India should now start looking beyond these West Africa and Middle East market if India has to cross 25 or even try to reach to 30 million metric ton with those niche varieties which are going into those specific geographies. Now my last question, which is going to be the same question to all three of you. If India has to lead the world market and continue to remain the globally competitive, strategically very important country in the global rice trade, what are the first top 2-3 things coming to your mind? It could be at any part of the value chain that India should do to hold that competitive advantage.
It's a very simple question which can be answered over a whole research thesis because a very simple question to ask, but there are so many aspects, so many facets, so many components, and I'll just spell out a few, not more than 4-5 because the list could be longer than we have time. So I think the first and foremost would be to go back to our varietals which are low GI. We need to sell trait rather than only carbs. Because today if we look at the protein content of our rice, or if we look at the zinc content of our rice, or if we look at the manganese content or magnesium content of our rice, they're depleted by almost 60-70% over last 2 to 3 decades. And there has to be a very conscientious effort between the seed sector at the national and the state level, the farmer, the agriculture ecosystem, then the traders and exporters also have to participate in that because it is very easy to expect, but it is almost impossible to implement that people will not kill each other to go lower in price. But if an association like the Chhattisgarh Association or the TRIA in the Kakinada, I mean, today I do not see these associations engaging with farmers actively, unlike some other trade associations which engage with farmers very actively on the productivity aspects, on the value addition aspect to farmers, like for example sugar. Now ISMA has got, it is also a body of traders and exporters and millers and processors, and they have got good number of programs where they really work hand in hand with farmers to improve their productivity, their production, improving their production cost, improving multiple things. I mean, so for example, the trade bodies have implemented the global certification protocols like Bon Sucro or Solidariat and all that. I do not see associations making an effort in actually improving the quality perception about Indian rice through these kind of activities. So the first is seed, second is a very cohesive, a very comprehensive, collaborative effort of the entire value chain to present a picture to the world that we are not cheap rice offerers, we are essentially value food offerers, which is a value loaded, trait loaded rice, which can be decidedly comparable to any other competing growth like Pakistan or Myanmar or Vietnam. So unless we do these two things, improve the productivity, bring back our varietals, which are trait focused, trait loaded, and work in collaboration with the entire value chain to present a kind of an integrated position or integrated front to the global market, that we are not cheap rice sellers, but we are value food offerers. That's the only way to bring the value orientation back into India's rice trade proposition.
Thank you, Anupam. Over to you, Neeraj. Your thoughts on this?
What Mr. Anupam has said is right, but I would like to say, or maybe my submission is that we have captured entire, lacuna where we were and all this. But we have to also think on certain point, like the farmer's education can bring a massive change. Seeding, yes, the government can, just work on this, but we have to educate our farmers that where they are getting more value. And I would rather go back to the Gulati ji discussion, what he said. The bonus of state governments should be for a specific variety and not for the all variety, because when it goes to common, the more, general category cargo, I can say the common grade cargo becomes easy to sow, and people start sowing those varieties. So I think if you want to bring a value, we have to be specific on the variety. We have to diversify, not only going for a rice, but we have to work upon, just packaged food kind of work, where we can work for ready-to-eat material that can be produced from the rice mills, and they can set up additional infrastructure. And nowadays, the shift in food habit is becoming a challenge. So people are also keen to go for ready-to-eat. So if we have certain plans, and I think government must be on this to improve. Secondly, as you are aware, our yield is the biggest concern also. If you'll compare with China, our yield is almost 2 to 2.5 million lesser than what China is producing in 1 hectare. So if farmer will be educated, their cost of production will reduce. In the same cost, they will get more cargo. It will help them to earn more. So ultimately, we have to improve their life, and then the country and entire trade will grow. This is what my submission is.
Over to you, Gagan.
I guess Anupam and Neeraj have already summed up everything. My only humble submission is that if we look at the facts, let's look at our competition in white rice. We have Pakistan and Myanmar. India leads in production, in stock management, in warehousing management, in the logistics support, in the facilities, in the milling capacity, the processing capacity. Still, we are undercut as we go internationally. Who has to be blamed? We people, who are the smartest people sitting over here, we are the ones to be blamed. If we unitedly decide not to undercut each other, because we are not competing with Myanmar and Pakistan. We are actually competing and undercutting each other. So the first thing is If we stop undercutting each other, the value will start coming back to us. While that is being done, the progressive steps which have been indicated by Anupam and Neeraj, those come into play. But the first thing first is that in the foreseeable future of say 1 year, can we take that step forward together and ensure that the industry does not bleed and we are able to maintain the value being deserved by the Indian white rice? That's where I'm coming from. Parboiled, we compete with Thailand, which is a much superior uniformed processing which they're able to supply to the world. That's where we need to chase and bring up our consistency in the contracts. Once that is done, we are able to maintain the value, start building up the value there. So I would say these are the baby steps which are doable and which will, give the path forward as we get into the diversification mode going further. That's about it. Thank you.
So the good news for rice bowl of Chhattisgarh is I think India is in a very sweet spot. We are now the world's largest producer of rice. We are the world's exporter, feeding to more than 40% of the world's population. I think the answer lies is that 2026 is going to be a fantastic year. We have seen the demand. The demand is going to be there. Q1 could be a little low, but I think for the next 3 quarters, the world will see that a lot of rice is going from India to those markets. And there is no reason why India cannot achieve 25 million metric ton of rice exports in 2026. I think a couple of pointers which we all have discussed. One is on the government policy side. I think we need more of a consistent policy wherein the trade or industry or farmer, they have a larger visibility on price and supplies. Second is on the logistics side, because India is a large, complicated country, very complex geography, where countries like Thailand and Vietnam, they have an advantage for a river transport, whereas India does not have. So how can India compete with those countries on the logistics point of view? Third, I think very important, again and again, we have been talking about the quality aspect of it. So by having a consistent quality, India need to see that we don't have much varieties in non-basmati. We are largely divided into 3 parts, which is long grain, medium grain, and short grain. So maintaining those quality specs in these 3 aspects, I think it's going to be very, very important. And fourth is on the branding and premiumization. I think that's where India can start driving more value, wherein can India see that how farmer engagement can be done, how can we start pushing more of a niche varieties into new geographies or even in the existing geographies. And then, of course, creating the right kind of market linkages where farmers can also start getting better value for the produce which they are doing. So with this, we'll wrap up this session. Thank you, all of you, for being such a wonderful audience and being patient with our conversation. And a big round of applause again for IIRS for conducting this conference. Thank you, everyone.
थैंक यू सो मच सर। और बहुत ही शानदार ये पैनल डिस्कशन रहा है। और अब हम मोमेंटो की ओर आगे बढ़ते हैं और अब हम अनिल अग्रवाल जी को आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि आप प्लीज़ आएँ और हमारे पैनलिस्ट को आप मोमेंटो दें। मिस्टर अनुपम कौशिक, मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर, नेशनल कोऑपरेटिव एक्सपोर्ट्स लिमिटेड। मयूर जैन जी से अब हम रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि आप प्लीज़ स्टेज पर आएँ और मिस्टर नीरज कुमार जी को आप मोमेंटो दें। जी, मिस्टर नीरज कुमार जी। रोहित जी से अब हम रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि आप प्लीज़ आएँ और मिस्टर गगन गुलाटी जी को आप मोमेंटो देंगे। मिस्टर गगन गुलाटी जी, कंट्री हेड एंड डायरेक्टर। और इस पूरे शानदार पैनल डिस्कशन को जिन्होंने बहुत ही बखूबी से मॉडरेट किया है, मिस्टर नितिन गुप्ता जी को मोमेंटो देने के लिए हम मुकेश जैन जी से रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि आप प्लीज़ आएँ और इस पैनल डिस्कशन के जो मॉडरेटर हैं यानी कि मिस्टर नितिन गुप्ता जी को आप मोमेंटो देंगे। मिस्टर नितिन गुप्ता जी, डिप्टी कंट्री हेड। थैंक यू सो मच सर। थैंक यू सो मच सर। और एक ग्रुप फोटोग्राफ के लिए हम आप सभी से रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं। ये मोमेंट, ये पल हमेशा के लिए तस्वीरों पर ताकि कैद हो जाए, इसलिए एक ग्रुप फोटोग्राफ। बहुत ही अच्छा ये पैनल डिस्कशन हुआ है, इंडियाज़ रोल इन दैट ग्लोबल राइस इकोनॉमी को लेकर ये बहुत ही अच्छी ये पूरी बातचीत रही है। एंड नाउ वी आर मूविंग फॉरवर्ड फॉर अ लंच ब्रेक, और अब हम एक लंच ब्रेक के लिए यहाँ पे रुक रहे हैं। और आज के IIRS इंडिया इंटरनेशनल राइस समिट 2026 के फर्स्ट एक ब्रेक के लिए यहाँ पर रुक रहे हैं, और आफ्टर जस्ट लंच ब्रेक हम फिर से यहाँ पर मिलेंगे, और फिर हम आगे भी बहुत से ऐसे पैनल डिस्कशंस होने हैं, बहुत से ऐसे पॉइंटर्स हैं जिस पर डिस्कशंस होने बाकी हैं, और डिग्निटरीज़ हैं जिनको हम सुनेंगे, उन्हें जानेंगे, उनकी बातचीत सुनेंगे। तो उन सभी के को हम कंटिन्यू आगे जारी रखेंगे, लेकिन फ़िलहाल एक छोटा सा लंच ब्रेक जिसके लिए हम यहाँ पर रुक रहे हैं, और फिर हम वापस इसी जगह पर ठीक 2 बजे यहाँ पर मिलेंगे, जिसमें आगे भी बहुत सी ऐसी चीज़ें हैं, पॉइंटर्स हैं जिस पर डिस्कशंस होने बाकी हैं, डिग्निटरीज़ को सुनना बाकी है। उन सभी को सुनने के लिए, जानने के लिए, उन सभी से मुखातिब होने के लिए हम वापस यहाँ पर ठीक 2 बजे हाजिर होंगे। तो फ़िलहाल के लिए एक छोटा सा लंच ब्रेक। थैंक यू सो मच। IIRS इंडिया इंटरनेशनल राइस समिट 2026 का ये सेकंड एडिशन ऑर्गेनाइज्ड बाय ट्रिया CG द राइस